now we have our next speaker all lined up. Dr. Robin Gould is joining us, and she is a producer of the Robin Gould Show, which is fairly new on Messianic Lamb Radio. And if y'all have not heard her, I highly recommend her show to you. She has a doctorate in religious education and a master's in marriage and family therapy. And she's been a practicing therapist since 2001. And she's also the author. She's another very busy lady. She's also the author of some Becky books. You can find them on Amazon, but they're I had them listed here. One of them I liked was Remarriage in the Bible. Here it is. I found my little notes here. Colossal Controversies, Peter's Vision, Beacon or Bacon. That's cute. First century words revealed to 21st century believers, and analysis of the dietary laws. Divorce and remarriage in the Bible. That's one that's really needed. There's a lot of people that have a lot of condemnation about that, but God's in the business of healing, as we were talking about earlier. So thank you so much, and you're also a wife and mother of 2 sons. And, all of us are busy ladies. So I really appreciate anybody who takes time out of their day and give us their time. It's a real gift to have you here, Robin. So thank you.
Well, Sherry, thank you so much. It's an honor to actually be with you wonderful ladies and hear all the wonderful things that you share. I'm just sitting in the background nodding and nodding and nodding. And it's always so encouraging to be with like mind and like kind and to bond. And we're not even near each other, but I feel close to you anyway. It's just a family,
I had said earlier, I said, Melena is in Canada. I said, we're an internet without borders, So we can get anybody. We're a virtual conference that can virtually have anybody who wants to virtually be here. So.
Yeah, that's right. Virtually nothing's impossible.
That's right. So come on and bring forth what you have for us today on this subject. And thank you for being here.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited to talk about focus. And this is a very exciting topic for me in general, because focus is something that I am always learning and relearning, unlearning and fixing. So I have to admit, so having had a pretty big academic background, I've had to have a fairly good level of being able to be disciplined and focused. But here's the thing, I'm not a very focused person at all, which is, if I'm obsessed with something, I will do well in it. But it takes me a lot to be disciplined, and I need deadlines from the outside, because I'm not as good with deadlines on the inside, except if it's certain, it's just part of my personality, which I try not to default into my personality traits. I try to understand the way I'm designed and be a kingdom builder within that. But being focused is something that I do well when I'm forced. Okay, so that's one of the things I've had to learn about myself. Not necessarily proud of that fact, but that is generally the way I work. I need deadlines, and I need to really have reasons to have time frames. So anyway, having said that, I wanted to bring forth a couple of things about a way to keep focused during this unnerving time. And I was actually speaking to a very dear friend yesterday, and we were talking about how unnerving the events that are unfolding around us are. I mean, truly, it is unnerving. I don't care how much faith you have. I mean, it's just something in our humanity that responds to very bizarre things that happen. And that's part of how we're designed to survive in this world, and to have I feel like the Father is just really imbued in us the mechanism to survive. And so we will be alarmed at things happening, and things that are happening that are wicked and evil are alarming. And so it is really probably just the most perfect idea to keep the focus of this conference on not being distracted. And so I thought we would define that a little bit, just according to my to where I come from, my lens. So if you've never seen me before, I'm an attachment specialist. I work in the arena of attachment. So a secure attachment would be where your primary attachment figure in this scenario, and in all scenarios, I would say, that would be God the Father. And the idea of attachment is that God the Father, I trust that he provides for my needs, and he's consistent, and he's faithful, and he is, and that I can trust it. So a secure attachment to the Father is the opposite of an insecure attachment with the Father. Now, when people have an insecure attachment, even in a relationship on earth, you see how that manifests. It shows up as maybe you're too clingy, maybe you're too withdrawn, maybe you're attention seeking, maybe you're a show off, maybe you are a liar. I mean, all these different things that people do, they don't even mean to do them. When I say liar, I'm saying, embellisher or whatever, the things that we try to do to gain approval. So that would be an insecure attachment. All these behaviors that come to the surface to try to get favor. But a true and healthy attachment that the Father wants us to have with him is that we know he loves us, and we never question it. We never have to earn it. We never have to try to get his love. We never have to be the boss. He's the boss. In fact, we should not try to be the boss. And so all of these things about attachment really help understanding not being distracted and being focused, because the idea would be is that our compass is set to the one thing that can lead us. The only one thing will actually lead us to the promised land. One thing, and that is Yeshua. Nothing else will get us there. Nothing else will lead us there. Though there are a lot of leaders in our peripheral field, there's a lot of things that want to take our focus. And a lot of people are talk a lot about the enemy, and I believe that there are these forces that absolutely can have an impact in our life. But a lot of the times, we are our own enemy because we allow ourselves to get distracted, or we don't take an inventory of what is distracting us often enough, and we get a backlog of these things. So anyway, having said that, let me talk about a couple of things. And as you always know, I have this ring light because I have a window in the wrong place here in my office, and I hate for you to have to see it in my in my glasses. But so the first thing I want to do is let's have a discussion about what is distracting and what is not distracting. Okay, so what is distraction? Let's define distraction. So in this present distress, right? Remember when Paul wrote that in this present distress, and he set forth in a letter, he set forth particularly it's in Corinthians, he set forth some specific suggestions of how to live, because when we're in this present distress, it's not business as usual. We're going to behave differently because different things are happening around us. I mean, that's just logical. But sometimes, so let's decide what's distracting. So let's see, it's going to be different for different people. Okay, so let's think about this. Is it distracting to watch the news or not? Okay, that's going to be a different answer for different people. Now, for some people, watching the news is so negative for them and so distracting away from their first love, their attachment, their primary focus of kingdom building in this present distress. It pulls them away. That causes them to have terrible anxiety. It causes them to focus on what's not happening properly in government, or what's happening around them in a way that is not kingdom building. And so when I say kingdom building, you know what I mean. Our goal is to build the kingdom. Our goal is that we love the Father so much, and we love his kingdom so much, and the kingdom of God is within us, that we, like the previous speaker said, we want to bring others, lead them, shepherd them, invite them, entice them, even enticing them, just court them as that vessel of courtship by proxy from a father who's pursuing them. Come on in, right? Come on in. And so the news, for some people, when they watch it, they get sucked into the news and they forget their focus, which is their compass, which is the gut, which is Yeshua. That's our compass. Now, for other people, it's different. They're tempted not to watch anything in the news and hide away in their prayer closet and be distracted. Now, here, I'm going to say this is controversial. We never want prayer to be our excuse. Every single good, wonderful thing, you can sin through the commandments. It's all about your motive, right? It's all about your kingdom building motive. So you can obey the Torah and be sinning, but not really obeying it. It's the spirit of the Torah that you're, does that make sense? I know that sounds crazy. Maybe I'll qualify it a little bit because I use this example quite often. So if you could imagine you have children and one of your children did something wrong and you said, go to your room and think and stay there until you really understand, what you did and how to repair the damage you caused with your sibling or whatever that is. And then you have to head out to the store and they know you're expecting an important work package and FedEx is ringing the door and the child's in the room and they know they could leave the room and just accept the package and return. But they say, oh, I was told to go in my room until I understand the repair I need to make. I haven't figured that out yet. What do you have? You have a person with the letter of the law. She said to stay in my room and not come out. But the spirit of the law is being broken because the whole point is that you're causing damage with your family members. So through that commandment, they're causing damage with their family members. So it's really a big deal about motive. So prayer is to be a kingdom building, edifying, encouraging intimacy practice and not an escape from the responsibility of knowing what's going on so that we can assess and compare this to what we know in the word that is going to happen or might happen, or how do we view this? So for some people, keeping up with the news is not going to be a problem. Escaping from it is. So everybody is going to have a different calling, a different measure of emotional angst in the way that they process information. And we can't say it's one size fits all. So as far as deciding what a distraction is, pray about that. Whatever you're tempted to do, just do the other thing. That's basically how I always say. I would say, like, if you're tempted to watch the news, don't. If you're tempted not to, watch it. So, and that doesn't mean, we believe everything in the news. I mean, we all know that there's been a lot of weird stuff going on. So we use discernment and we compare everything to the word of God. But as far as being focused and not distracted, where it comes to all the things in the media and all the things happening around you, you have to ask the Father to tell you what your role is in being focused, right? So where we won't judge or condemn other people that feel differently and feel like, I really feel like I do need to see what's going on in pop culture so I can watch the deterioration of how this works so I can be in prayer in this way, or know how to deal, because of course I'm a therapist, I have to deal with people in this modern world and what they're encountering. So on some level, I can't be impervious to what's happening. And yet at the same time, there are times where, honestly, so personally for me, I am not currently a big, huge follower of the news. I was, I'd say a couple months ago. I'm much less now because it was a distraction. It was actually becoming a distraction from what I needed to be aware of, which were certain measures of growth I needed to do. Certain things I needed to be separate from that, not knowing really on a broader scale or broad sense about what's going on, but it can even change in the seasons that you're in, right? So just be sensitive to the season you're in and what your needs are and what would qualify as a distraction. So there's times where you don't want to be distracted from what's going on and hidden away. And then there are times that you don't want what is happening to distract you from, your prayer closet. And you're going to see me point always right here when I say prayer closet, because that's where mine is. So it might look weird when I keep doing that, but that's actually my prayer closet right behind me, which is a really neat thing. And I just moved into this house. So it's really the first house I've ever really had that opportunity to have this hidden, inner room, which I really love. Anyway, so that's the first thing I want to bring up about distractions and kind of open the door for you to do an inventory in your spiritual curriculum of what is really distracting. And it might not look like my neighbor's list. And that's okay, because we're a body and everybody has a function and everyone has a different place. So the thumb doesn't do the same thing that the ear does, but the thumb can block the ear for good or bad reasons, right? For helpful or non-helpful reasons. We could be closing our ear with our thumb and missing something we need because we're being rebellious or lazy or whatever that might be. Or we could be like, I don't need to hear. That's not affirming to the gospel and the building of the kingdom. So just food for thought there. Let me look at a couple notes here. Let's see here. Okay, so what can we do on a daily basis, just from a practical standpoint, to stay focused? Okay, let's just, these are simple tenets, but these are the things that I believe are really, really important. So one of the things that I feel like is really a big important part is reading the Torah portions on the schedule. Okay, so reading so there are people that feel like, why do we all need to be doing the same thing as a group? I mean, that's just being cattle and everybody, and I can do this, thing without, always having to be with a group. Okay, so let me challenge you on that just a bit. I know people that I love that feel this way, but we are a community and we do need each other. And there's something really exciting about the emotional pacing of us together. That's one of the best parts about the Shabbat and how it falls on the same day every week since the very moment of creation. This 7-day cycle has never changed. And so when we are all together, even like Sherry said, we're virtually together, but we're together, right? Like I was listening to her. She was introducing me. I'm following her. I'm encouraged by what I heard. But when we are pacing together and we're not on our own completely own timetable, there's something that happens to us as a body. So if we're using Shabbat just as an example, when we operate on the Shabbat, it's a lifestyle. This is not, it's a focus. It's a discipline. It helps us not be distracted because we know what Shabbat looks like. So we know we need to prepare for it. So that has a domino effect backwards, a beautiful, consistent togetherness, right? So for a lot of people, Thursdays, extra groceries, Friday, cleaning and cooking. Already on Wednesday, Tuesday. So what do they say? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday belongs to the Shabbat before, is you're, really reveling in what you got from Shabbat. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday belong to the next Shabbat. So it's kind of like this never-ending pattern, this eternal pattern that's really, really nice. But when we are all on board, it's not like, hey, listen, can you get to this project I'm working on? Like I thought we could start it, Friday at 3 p.m. When we're all operating on a Shabbat lifestyle, that question doesn't ever get asked. It's like, no, not a couple hours before Shabbat dinner am I going to ask you to embark on a project with me. And I don't have to put my neighbor, my community, in the position of having to say no to me because they don't want to say no to me. So why do I want to present them with something they need to sort out and wonder about the weightier matter and all that? We have to work on that. That's good, healthy boundaries. But when we're on a schedule together, these boundaries are naturally erected just by the way life is and the way time is. So it can be we're on the same journey, we're on the same path where, hey, Thursday I'm going to be doing double groceries. I can stop by and grab this. You know what? I'll be out. I'll meet you halfway in the parking lot. Here's the book you borrowed, whatever. There's so many millions of ways where when we're pacing together as a community and we're thinking as a community, we act like a community. We think like a community, and it's beautiful. And then there's that knowing gaze. When you meet a Sabbath keeper, you're at a little barbecues on a Wednesday and you're like, someone said, oh, you're a Sabbath keeper? Well, that person's a Sabbath keeper. And you kind of have this knowing gaze. Family, right? It's like, this is great. And I remember actually the way I found my accountant, I was actually in shop, a little shop, and they gave me a receipt and they said there's 50% off on Saturday if you want to come in. And I know I'm not a big announcing everything to everybody, but I just felt led to say, well, thank you for that. I keep the Sabbath, so I don't come in on Saturday, but thank you for the offer. And that person says, oh, you and so, my accountant. And I said, and I was new in town. This was back in Tennessee. And I said, oh, you have a Sabbath keeping accountant? They said, yes. And I was like, I'm looking for one. And I'm thinking, I want to use the Sabbath keeper. I really do. I want to always promote kingdom building. I always want to do that. So this was Friday. And I knew I'm not going to call on Friday. Their office is probably closed afternoon on. And it was. I mean, I just called the test. But I thought, I'm already on a schedule with him. And anyway, called Monday, got him on the docket. Amazing, wonderful, incredible accountant. But that's just the idea of community kingdom building, just hearing that. And so the Sabbath is a blessing and a lifestyle. And it's a cohesiveness that when we're together, we are together. And so it's something that we have in common, because the rest of the world around us, as I always say, Babylon, whatever, it's a place of confusion. There's just nothing that is really on that schedule per week, except that they'll have like the weekend. They'll have like, well, Friday night's a night off, Saturday is a sleep-in day, and Sunday's a yard work day, and then Monday we get back to work. So it's not like they don't have any sort of a schedule at all, but it's a much tighter containment system with the Shabbat, because there's just that divine trajectory toward this wonderful experience that we're commanded to do. So it's not just this loosely held cultural pacing mechanism. It's a commandment that is a part of us. And so anyway, for an example, that's a way to be focused. So when we read the Torah portion every week and we're all reading the same thing, this is sort of very simplifying to life, because it's not like, oh, what should I be studying right now? I don't know. Like, I want to study creation because that's a really big one. And I want to study the temple. That's a huge one. I probably need to study about forgiveness. But here's the thing. All of the Bible is about all of those things, of course. But when we're all on the same path with our rabbi, our Yeshua, right? We're on the same page, literally and figuratively. We're on the same page. This opens the door for more commentary relevant to what you read today, right? So something to think about. To maintain focus, we want to maintain cohesion with the body. We want to be cohesive with our brother. And that's as much as we can. And especially now when we're far away and a lot of us can't go anywhere, people are homebound, and it's very difficult. The best we can do, and one of the perks is that we have that Torah portion where all the Torah lovers that are on that schedule, we're united. We stand united, right, in this. And this harkens me to, it's very interesting if you ever do any study on technology and about how technology has impacted our human relationships. Because when they introduced the washing machine, you've ever heard the term Blue Monday. Blue Monday is the laundry day. It was the day that all the blue would be the bleaching and whitening. And they were talking about how this was something the women would do. They would meet down where the water was or outside in front of their homes, and they would be doing their washing together. They would all be talking, and it, of course, became a custom. It just became Blue Monday. And then when they introduced the washing machine, there was a really interesting book. I wish I could think of what it was called, but they talk about how in these areas, they noticed that the women became somewhat depressed because community was compromised with this addition of technology, because they were losing one of their points of connection that they had become accustomed to and had paced themselves emotionally. They knew, oh, Sunday was tough because of this, but I'm going to be able to talk to these women about it on Monday. And then suddenly everybody's doing their laundry whenever it's convenient or whenever they want to, or whatever is easy with this machine in my house with the door shut. And so it's just interesting. We are not designed to be doing this alone. And it's unnerving to do it alone and difficult. And so just, yeah, something to just, like I said, I want to throw out examples for you to kind of have the imagery of like how helpful focus and distraction inventory happens when we're pacing together. So one way to remain focused is to be with a group and to be reading what the group's reading and to be taking that nice portion. The word portion is it's portioned out just right for you to be able to get through it, and we can get through it together. So there's the Torah portion. Oh, my grandmother used bluing in her whitewash. See exactly, Blue Monday. I love, oh, Harriet, hi. And I so appreciate people showing up here and talking. Feel free to chat. I love that. Also, then Sherry says also the name is watch the wash on the line. Yes, if extra sheets, they knew there were guests or sickness and asked to see if help was needed. Yeah, so they could read a lot about the people and what was happening in their lives by their laundry. And suddenly, that one of those points of connections is shut down. And yep, very good. Oh, such good points. It's always good when the body adds to their, it adds to the discussion, just makes it so much more alive. Okay, so here's another idea. So the Jewish prayers. So let's talk about that for a second. So traditionally in mainstream Judaism, we pray 3 times per day, and we do that happily, right? This is not something that we feel corralled as, cattle and like it's a dry, benign thing. Not saying that people don't administer it that way in some ways, or some people don't, but this is another case where people can feel like they need to reinvent the wheel all the time, and you really don't, because if these prayers are written down for you, and that's okay, right? That is all right. I am a firm believer that when we recite our Pesach Seder and we're all together in unison and reading the same thing every year, and you know what? In Yom Kippur prayers, right, where it's like, there's so many things in those prayers I forgot to repent for. And it's really nice to have a hand, right? I really love that. Well, these prayers, these, morning, noon, and evening, these are helpful ways to be disciplined and to maintain focus. So I want to plug a book for this. Now, of course, you can order just a Jewish prayer book, but here's a really great book with a lot of good information. It's by Dr. Halissa Aylwine. It's called Standing with Israel, and she teaches about these prayers, and of course, gives you a very good education about them. And I love this book, and I keep ordering it over and over. I need it by the case, really, is what I need. But order yourself a prayer book, and you go through these prayers, and it's gratitude and blessing, and it's helps me focus. It helps focus. And you know what? It doesn't mean that every minute do I feel like doing it. It's a discipline. And I was watching Halissa Aylwine, Dr. Aylwine. She was actually talking at Revive, and she was talking about what's the root word of discipline. And so having these as disciplines to reset your compass, even if you're working through, it's like you're busy, but you do it as much as you possibly can. This is a great reset. And prayers are good. And just because they might be written and people have been using them for hundreds of years, and some people think that that's a negative, I actually think that's a positive. I stand in solidarity with people from before and in the future with these measures. So anyway, I think that's a great way to stay focused. I think it's very helpful. It's a daily thing. It's every day. It's every day. It's 3 times a day resetting your compass. You eat. A lot of people eat 3 times a day to refill that tank. And prayer that happens to have been written for you does not mean that's bad. But I think we kind of get into a maverick mode where we always think we can't do it the way it's been done, because we've jumped. We don't want to jump from one theological prison to another, or doctrinal prison, or legalism, or whatever people say. But I'm a firm believer that these are wise practices that help us. So that might not be something you are interested in, but I wanted to throw that out there as something that I find helpful and focusing, and helps me not be distracted. So let's talk a little more about I want to talk about the prayer closet, which I've mentioned. Let me see. I'm trying to think of how much time. Where am I? My clock. Oh gosh, that hour goes by so fast. I love talking to all of you, so it really goes by fast. So a prayer closet. My gosh, I have a new air conditioner in the vent. It just switches, and these little hairs. Please forgive me with me touching my face during this season constantly. But let's talk about the prayer closet. So the prayer closet is essentially supposed to be that inner room, that place that you can get away from all of this distractions and you can be focused, right? So you're focused in your prayer closet. And so not everybody has the luxury that I am finally able to have this really great prayer closet, which I love. And I'm putting things in it that make it a meaningful, sacred space for me where I feel comforted and safe. And sacred space is a big part of what I think is helpful in healthy ways to walk your salvation out with fear and trembling, a good, safe place to go. And so a prayer closet is interesting to me. I don't know if you are aware, but there's a lot of, you've heard of, Pavlov's dogs, right? We have behavioral, of course, I come from the psychologist background. So there is a behavioral mechanism to the way we were designed to do things, function, and have things be easier for us to get used to. So if you study for a test in a certain room, they've shown that if you think about that room while you're taking your test, you'll have better recall of what you studied. Because we're all connected to our environment and how we learn, and it's meant to be that way because it's meant to help us learn the Word of God. So we're all designed as vessels for the Word, to be seed, to be soil for the seed of the Word. And so if we're designed that way, we're going to function that way. And if we function that way, we're going to see fruit, right? This seed is going to bear fruit. And so the prayer closet can be this safe space. Now, if you don't have an actual closet that you can go into and kind of have that dedicated space just for you, if you have that, if you in your house somewhere, even if you've got to find another place for your brooms or whatever, do it. Clean it really well and put the things in there. I'll sometimes show my prayer closet and what I felt like was my sacred space. But create that if you can, particularly now when you feel like, well, I'm home and I'm not going anywhere much. Well, getting into that inner room can be very therapeutic. And so when you go in that room and you shut the door, your body already knows now's the time to pray and get still and listen and fight the real fight. Sometimes prayer is sitting and listening and stop fighting. And sometimes we fight in prayer for the things that are happening around us and for what we are going through or what others are going through. And so having a prayer closet. Now, if you don't have a closet, there's no dedicated space. Do you know that you can still create a dedicated space? I've heard one woman say she would go under her kitchen table. That was her space. So people wouldn't be home and she'd go under there or whatever. Just be creative and just see if you can find that place that you go. And it's a place that's dedicated toward focus and being away from distractions. And one thing I like to do when I'm in my prayer closet, and actually brought to show you so you know what a talit is, right? So I have a talit. I have it hanging on the wall, and then sometimes I will even wrap it around myself to feel like I'm in that tent of protection, of prayer, of Torah, that I'm protected. Because I do believe in physical rituals. There's a reason the temple has all of these rituals, things that you do. These are attachment rituals, I believe. Now, I'm not reinventing my own attachment rituals, except I kind of am, because what I'm doing is I'm just saying, well, this is something that is a holy object, and I'm going to wrap it around myself like they did. And I'm going to feel wrapped in Torah. And you know what's interesting for me personally? If I wrap this around myself, boy, my prayers are even like a little bit better, more pure, maybe less wordy, because I'm really aware. If I'm wrapping this around myself, I'm accountable to this prayer to really be raw, really be real, and really have my motives checked. It says in the Word about fancy worded prayer and all that, but really get into your inner room and just really talk to the Father. Really, really, really talk to the Father. So in my prayer closet, to be focused and to not be distracted, I do not bring my phone. It is my no phone room, right? So you can put a mezuzah at the entrance of your prayer closet, and you can keep your phone out so that you're not distracted by a Facebook post or a text or a call or a notification of some kind from social media. And not so if you need music in there, if you want music, I actually have a little DVD player. You remember back from a long time ago, before everything became, digitized in our portable devices? I actually have CDs, like older worship music, which I like, and I can play that, right? I have a little outlet in there. It's amazing. It's like so amazing. If I didn't, I would just put batteries in it. But it's my no phone zone. It's where you can't reach me and I don't want to reach you, except I want to reach the Father and I want to hear him. So I'm excluding people out of my prayer closet. No one is allowed in there. That is my space. I exclude people. Am I selfish? I don't think so. What I think that is discipline. I think what I'm doing is I'm creating safety in an environment of busy people where I can go and be focused and be disciplined and pray and listen and be still and not feel like that room has all these other uses. So that's a luxury I have in this new house I live in, which I'm very grateful for. And I'm happy that I have it. All right, so let's get into, let's see what else here about the prayer closet. Let's see. Okay. One other way that we can be focused and not distracted is sometimes is to be still, is to wait. Okay, so one thing, when you're in an airplane and they say, look around for the nearest exit, and the nearest exit actually might be behind you. Might be just one row behind you, but you wouldn't normally always think to turn your head. Well, here's the thing. When we have let me see how I can word this without getting too long, since we're getting short on time. Sometimes we think that if we're waiting, we're not moving forward. But let me just say this. Sometimes waiting and waiting and waiting until you hear what you need to know is moving forward. Because acting on something in your own strength is moving backwards. That is true. So waiting is a way to be focused. I am going to remain focused until I'm told to stop waiting. I'm going to wait. One of the things that's really important to stay focused, and with the prayer closet and with the waiting, is to allow yourself to be yourself. That does not mean default into all your flesh settings that detract from kingdom building. But in this place, during this time where everything just is shaking around us, allow yourself the truth of you and allow yourself to experience the full range of emotions that come with watching these things happen and grieving what's happening, if that's part of your normal process. So be aware not to anesthetize yourself, insulate yourself with the Holy Spirit. Let the Holy Spirit be your insulation, but don't anesthetize yourself. Shutting down is not kingdom building, it's escapism. So you're going to have a range of emotions. You're going to have different feelings about what's happening around you. You're going to feel sad. Do you know that doesn't make you weak and it doesn't make you distracted if you're having an emotion that was put in you by the Father? Because that's the price we pay for love when we're seeing things that happen. We're seeing a lot of violence and a lot of lost people. And it's heartbreaking. And allow yourself to feel that. We always want to default into righteous anger or perfect testimonies. But there's a big pit stop many of them in between these two things. There's a place to stop and ponder and wait and say, I really don't understand what my role here is. I'm going to wait until you tell me what it is. And I will know, because when the Father speaks to you, you know what he's saying. You might not know exactly every detail of it. It might just be a little bit of light for that one step that you're taking. But if we are too testimony prone, where everything becomes a testimony, I'm going to tell you something, don't get sucked into the show. We talked about this last week, or my last show. We talked about, are we Bible passionate or are we Bible paparazzi? Remember never to get sucked into the show. And so Babylon's a big show. And right now there's a lot of entertainment value to a lot of people about what's happening. But let's not be entertained and be sucked into the entertainment aspect of it, right? Let's get into our hearts and let's really feel the Father's heart on the matter, and wait until we know what that is. Wait for clarity, but allow yourself the truth of you so that you can process that with the Father. And he'll tell you, here is an area where I want to help you feel differently. I want to show you some more truth, and you're going to feel differently with more information. And you can trust him because he will do that. He will show up when you ask him. When you say, Father, meet my needs. My need is to know you more. My need is to understand my role today. He will show up. You can trust him. You don't have to do anything else until he tells you, okay, here's how you build the kingdom. Today, do this. Tomorrow, do this. And he might only tell you each day. I don't know. But to be focused during these distracting times, you have to be authentic. Don't be distracted into a false self, into a fake prayer. No false reasons will keep you from building this kingdom because you're distracted by how you should be. Okay, the Father will turn you into what you need to be, what he wants you to be, what he's destined you to be. You just have to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself and be honest with him. And that happens in that prayer closet. And in conversations and processing with trusted others, in unguarded moments where you're unafraid to speak these things with the people that you trust and you process together, right? Because we confess to each other and we work through things together. Sometimes people help us see something that we were not seeing properly. We are not all knowing, right? But when we operate together, the thumb doesn't always know what the left heel is doing. Sometimes the thumb has to touch the left heel. Oh, okay. So be aware that we're all parts of the body and that you are a complex individual that the Father is excited to pursue and explore with you and show you all the ways that he made you and help you unmake all the ways you made yourself. And that's the prayer closet. Focus on the Father and allow him to show you this, that he is focused on you. He is focused on you. He cares about you. He made you. He's proud of himself that he made you. And you are his favorite thing to work on. Show up with a willing heart. That's focus, and that's staying away from distractions. So keep that in mind as we are, let's see where we are here. Ooh, my goodness. We really try to fit a lot into an hour, I guess. Okay. So I touched on this a little with what I was just saying is about boundaries. Okay. Being focused and not being distracted requires boundaries. Okay. So simple, but so hard. Boundaries are something that in many ways do not come naturally to the kingdom of God, because we are always worried that we are doing something wrong or that we're not giving enough or caring enough. Boundaries are really important. Doing for others can be a distraction when it's tearing down your role as a kingdom builder. And I touched on this last show as well, just that people in ministry and you when I say people in ministry, I mean you, right? You have a family, you have a post office. I mean, ministry means a lot of things. It just doesn't mean you have a bona fide website that people can send emails to and you answer letters. I mean, ministry is ministry. And the ministry that you have, you do need to protect and guard that there's not a breach of that, of those boundaries. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have doors that you open and let people in, and absolutely that you don't walk out and help people, but you have to maintain safe and healthy boundaries so that you can stay focused. So if the father says, write this blog, write the blog, and don't allow breaches to infract that goal. Be focused. Always weighing out if there's a life or death issue, of course. But remember that if you're calling and your skills and gifts are maybe hospitality, and you have one person that's constantly calling on that gift and constantly set a boundary, because that gift isn't just for one person, right? This is a hard word for a lot of us because we are not taught in religious systems to have boundaries. That's why we're in the mess we're in many ways, because of boundary markers are really, really important, that we honor them and that we set them, that we make ourselves predictable so that people know what they're getting with us. I am not always good at that. I am not always predictable. I know, and I'm working on this. This is something to work on. Set healthy boundaries to be a kingdom builder. Being a kingdom builder means you need a certain amount of rest. You need a certain amount of time in your prayer closet. You need a certain amount of time with other people. You need a certain amount of time in the word, and you need a certain amount of time to just be still. You won't always get all of those things, but you can strive to create a healthy balance so that you can have those things. And there are times where you're going to be heavy need on the stillness and heavy need on the service in the community because there's a need. And then you're going to bounce back to, okay, now I might need a little extra more stillness because I had a lot of interaction, but there is a need. So just be aware of that. And if you're struggling with that, find a trusted friend and talk about that. Say, listen, I'm losing my focus. And what happens when you lose your focus because you're not setting proper boundaries, you know what happens? You get resentful. And whether or not you're even aware of that, it oozes out, it eases into what would be a delightful day, right? And or a day of some sort of processing. But when we're operating in the I don't deserve boundaries, my life isn't worth as much as this person's life, when we're not loving our neighbor as ourselves, we're forgetting about setting proper boundaries. That's a false self. That's the martyr, right? There's only one martyr, and that's Yeshua. And he is the ultimate martyr, right? And he is our portion. So be aware of boundaries. And that can be a buzzword for psychobabble, and I'm not using it as such. I'm talking about that trajectory in kingdom building that is mandatory, proper containment, so that we are ready for battle, ready to listen, ready to share, ready to pray, ready to feed, whatever we need to do. But we need to be ready, and we need to keep ourselves in that ready state as much as we can. So that is one of the things. Now, I think that leads into self-care, taking care of yourself during these unnerving times. Reach out for help. Talk to your neighbor, your friend. Step out and get some fresh air. Take that extra time in prayer that you need. I'm a big fan of, lighting a candle and just having a minute, right? To just, if that's what you need to do it. And you know what? If that's what you want to do it. Long as these things don't come at the expense of what you're called to do, that's a part of maintaining your focus, maintaining health, maintaining focus. So this might sound like, wow, you're really talking about a lot of self-focus, a lot of self-care, a lot of self. Well, you know what? You can't give what you don't have. So you have got to respect the kingdom containment center you're allotted with before you can help build the kingdom. You have got to put your oxygen mask on first. Not all the time do you get to, or should you, but most of the time. I always say if 80-20, you're doing pretty good. There are times where, my kids were growing up and they had the stomach bug and I had to stay up with them all night. Obviously, I was tired. I was exhausted. I went against my temple's needs for a very, very good reason, to minister and serve my children in a way that the Father has called me to do. But I'm not every night on a whim going to listen to music with them late at night because they want to, because I have to wake up and, do things and serve in the kingdom and build the kingdom. So there's just to keep that in your mind, for how to see that. And what's really neat, let's see, what time have I got here? Okay. So you're going to see people during these unnerving times. Okay. And you know what? We have to look at who surrounds us. What is our peer group? What's our friendships? What's going on? We're going to have safe people. I call them trusted others, people that we can talk to, that we trust, that we can listen to them, and we respect each other's boundaries, and we work together to build the kingdom. We help restore each other. We encourage each other. We call each other out in safe and healthy, non-shaming ways, all about Yeshua, right? We're all about walking like Yeshua together and to help each other. And so that's a very big part of what you're going to see is people who don't know how to do that. Now, I don't want you to write these people off and just, you should have learned. No oil in your lamp. Sorry for your luck. We can't do that. There are people that are just waking up to who the Father is and that they have a need. That's part of what the shaking is about, is wake up, right? Wake up. The alarm clock's going off. They need a place to go, a safe place to go. Now, this doesn't mean they're going to know everything you know in 10 minutes. But can you be a shepherd? Can you be, yes, the pasture has fresh grass. Come on, eat. So what we don't want to do is enable people to remain unawake. But we also don't want to despise the ones that are just waking up. We need to be open to the newer sheep, to the younger sheep. And we have to be present. And you know what? Share the responsibility. Get your group, your couple of friends, and work together. One of you might be really tired one day. One of you might have the flu the next day. The other one might have had a flat tire that day. But let's try to create systems where these young sheep have consistent mentorship. And mentorship is nothing to sneeze at. It's an important part of kingdom building. Is you want to learn to be a kingdom builder, watch somebody who loves people and knows how to manage their own life. That is, anyone who does that, that's high praise that you can do that. Well done, my friend. So keep that in mind. And remember that you are not doing this in your own strength. You are not doing this alone. Even though, like I always say, you are a big part of what's wrong with you and you are the big solution of what is going to be right with you, because it's just stop doing certain things. Stop believing certain lies about yourself or about others. Stop operating in unforgiveness. The Father will give you the strength to tackle the things that you know you are doing wrong. And he'll give you the clarity to figure out what those things are, because sometimes we don't know that we are really our own stumbling blocks. But much of the time, we are. But we have a clear and present help. We have a present help. We have Yeshua. He is here. He is with you. And I loved, it's interesting because I was thinking about mentioning this today. And the previous speaker, not Melina, which is a beautiful name, by the way. And she was talking about how she was picturing Yeshua, saying, look in my eyes. And it's funny because I have this little nephew. His name is Levi. And he's the cutest little toddler you've ever, he's so cute. I could get lost trying to talk about him. He's so precious. And my mother was telling me he had gotten a dinosaur toy for his birthday, and it made noises, and it was scary to him. And but he didn't want to be scared. He's very intrigued with the dinosaur, and she was telling me how cute it was that he would take her and lead her by the hand and hold her hand while they would look at the dinosaur together. As long as he was holding her hand, that he could look at the toy. And then he would say, Levi, not scared, you know, really, really cute, because he had a partner to look at this. And and that's such great imagery, because that's kind of how I think about Yeshua, like he's there. So in my world, if I'm picturing something, because I want to have some sort of a tangible image, and I'm picturing like I'm on a bench and Yeshua is sitting next to me. I'm not saying what he looks like. I'm not even going there. What I'm saying is his presence. He's with me, right? He's there. The person of Yeshua. So the person of him. He became a man like us, and he gets it, right? He gets this. So it's the person, it's this piece that you could hold his hand, and you could say, you know, this person's hurt me, and I'm struggling to forgive. I'm struggling to forgive this person. They've hurt me, and to let go of this angst I have toward this person, just it's like, can I do it? I don't even know if I can do it. I don't know that I can do that. But with Yeshua holding your hand, you can do it. Because could you just envision? He's like, I'm here. I saw the whole thing. I saw what happened. I saw how much pain you were in. I saw the wounds that were inflicted, and I see the scar that you are looking at. So we're going to forgive together. You and me. I'm with you. We're together. I'm with you. Let it go. Hold my hand. Hold on to me. And let that go. Just let it go. Don't assign to that person the ability to produce bitterness in you. Choose me. Don't choose that. So holding my hand, and I'm looking at that dinosaur, and it's like, you let go. You stop being afraid. So eventually little Levi would let go of the hand, but you know, his Mima would be right near him, right? Because she brought safety for him to be able to explore something he wasn't sure about. What's going to happen when I forgive that person? Am I letting go of my dignity? And Yeshua says, no, your dignity is in me. Your dignity is me. This is turn the other cheek. No one can shame you because they don't give you your value or your integrity or your honor. Your honor comes from me. Remember, this is about you and Yeshua. This is you and the Father. This is you and the Father. He is the one. He has got you. He's got your hand. He will hold it through every single difficult, challenging, impossible thing he asks you to do. And I promise you, he doesn't ask you to do impossible things unless he completely fortifies you to do it. You just have to be willing. You just have to have that door open to what he is going to bring and what he is going to accomplish through you for himself. My husband taught me that, and I never forgot it. And I think of it every single day. What will you accomplish through me for yourself? So I want to be that open conduit to build this kingdom. I want that privilege. I want that. Do I every day show up ready and do it right? No. Because sometimes I get distracted, or I'm focused but on the wrong thing. It does take discipline. And that is that dying to the flesh piece. Now, that doesn't mean live your life unhappy and be a martyr and hate everything. And that's not the goal. So I'm not saying all entertainment's wrong or you shouldn't have a fancy dinner. I'm not saying anything like that. That's all just the stuff. I'm talking about no kink in the hose here. That this is a free-flowing system. That the divinity of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob can touch other people through the openness that I bring. I'm this vessel. And he's not using me. He's using me. He's with me. He's empowered me. He is giving me the privilege of ministering to one of his children he loves. And he's saying, the mitzvah gets to be yours today, Robin. But you won't do what I will. Be open. You know how I've taught you, Robin, to be nice? You be nice today. You do it. You know how. Do it. Go. And the Father is glorified. And particularly when we don't take credit, particularly like my husband puts the money in the widow's little coat pocket at church and she doesn't know. Who does she praise for that? The Father. And what does that do? That enhances her secure connection with him because he's there for her. He loves her. This world's a very complicated place. Things are falling down around us. Everything that can be shaken will be shaken. And right now it kind of feels like, yeah, a lot of things are shaking. Is it unnerving? Yes. Is it bewildering? Absolutely. Is it unexpected? Not really. I mean, this is the stuff we've been reading about since we were on our little Sunday school carpet squares. Remember that? I remember as a little girl, I actually went to Catholic school and we had our little catechism class and we'd sit on the little squares and we would learn that, you learn about Revelation when you're just a little kid and you're like, what? Now, I don't know if all the things in Revelation are occurring now, but I do know something's happening. And we are being called to focus on Yeshua. Because his focus is on you and all the people. Because every knee will bow and every knee will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. That Yeshua HaMashiach is the one and only Messiah. And that is the ultimate thing that all we know is him and him crucified. So he's with you. He's with you in your prayer closet. He's with you at the post office. He's with you at the grocery store, with or without a mask, right? All these arguments and all of these things. That's all the fray. Does the fray matter? Yes. Because what matters is how you respond to it. So be patient with people. Be patient with yourself. Allow yourself the full range of this experience to dig into the crevices and the cracks, the things that need to go, the things that make you want to be your own boss, the things that make you want to be like God instead of God. Very, very important that we remember. He is God and we are human. We are not in control. If we haven't learned that yet, how hard-headed are we? Pretty darn, right? So there's no amount of education that I've ever had that prepares me for this. This is experiential. This is relational. This is nothing I've read or learned in a book someone wrote or that I wrote. My books won't help you understand the experiential aspect. You learn by doing, right? By walking. And as Jacob became Israel, he never walked the same again. So each day that we focus and become disciplined, we never walk the same again. So the future begins now. And you have everything you need to fulfill the destiny you are called to fill, to be the woman or man of God you are called to be. And in the process of you doing that, many, many people will benefit. And one day we're going to see the backside of that tapestry. Or actually, right now we see the backside. We're going to see the front side, the design. We're seeing all the knots and things where we compensate behind the scenes to make it work and put together. But the Father accomplishes his things, his will, his agenda through things you could not even imagine. Let's not put him in a box and think we can predict the creator of the universe. We can't. So I'm very happy that this conference today is about focus, is about distractions. It's a meaty topic, isn't it? For us to figure out what the distractions are and not compare ourselves to other people. and not judge other people as they figure out what the distractions are for them. We are all given a life and we have to live it. And the Father has given you life and he's given it to you to have abundantly. That doesn't mean rich in money. It doesn't mean perfect looking. It doesn't mean all these things. What's an abundant life? It's that seed planted in that soil that is bearing fruit. It's just look at a peach. Just go online and Google, look at that perfect peach. That is abundance. It's abundance. Just picture the most simple things. But the Father will use his complicated measures that you could never knit together in your mind or pre-pattern for him. He will show up on his own terms. That's the best part, that he's God. And that's how we attach to him securely. As we wrap this up and tie this into my initial statements, you want a secure attachment to God? It's there for the taking. Just trust the way he does it. He might not use your ideas. That's okay. Because if he's smarter than you, then he can meet your needs and take care of you. And you can stop trying to be him. Because in doing that, in eating off that tree where you will be like God, you will surely die. Because it's not territory that you can handle. You cannot manage his role. You were never meant to. And he never created you for that. He wants a relationship with you. And I'm so happy that you are listening. Because what does this tell him? You want a relationship with him. And you know what's amazing? That you do have the ability to delight the creator of the universe. Do you even understand how incredible that is? He has made this system for his pleasure, that your delight in him is personal. I can't even wrap my head around that. But when you pray, when you approach the throne of grace with your petitions and your rawness and who you are and wanting him to show you everything, and he knows you trust him, that's his reward. You are his reward. That's incredible. But you're valuable because he made you. You didn't make yourself. But you are everything to him. You are his world. You. Yes, you. So I want you to remember that, be encouraged and edified. And I would like you to remember that focus is a choice. Distraction is an element, but you are a child of God. And you will walk, and he will hold your hand. So you just keep that hand free for him. And the other hand, remember, focus.
Amen. Very well said. And you said a whole lot.
I know. Do I talk too fast? From the north. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's wonderful. Everything was wonderful. I mean, you hit on so many good points, the one about community, the parashah. What better time for God to speak to his people? It's when we're all on the same parashah. And I have talked to people in Florida, other places, and say, we saw so-and-so in the parashah, and they're saying, that's exactly what we saw too. I mean, just confirmations of things like that. And the prayers, the traditional prayers, you can have somebody from wherever come to your Shabbat table, and if nothing else, they can participate in the Shabbat prayers because it's the tradition. Traditions are good as long as they don't go against the Word of God. So Amen. We have the traditional prayers that they can join in and feel a part of the community at our table if they're from overseas somewhere.
Amen. And if sometimes you're just not in that place to figure your prayer out and it's written for you, you can still get into your heart and have help. Yeah. And it's fun community, because I have a friend, she went to Paris, and I was asking about her trip, and she said, you know what the most amazing part of my trip was? And I'm like, what? And she ran into her neighbor. She didn't know her neighbor was going to Paris, and they ran into each other in Paris. And she's like, what? That was the most amazing part of her trip. That she ran into someone she knew. And just like you're saying, I saw that in the portion too. I saw that. It's like, that's exciting. It's like, look, we're together. Somehow we found each other in Paris, you know?
And it really is, and it just shows us more and more that our God is a living God, you know, and the traditional prayers, they're not a stopping point, they're a beginning point. We can be inspired by tradition. You being raised Catholic, there was a part in the Mass when they went to English, and because I learned it in Latin, and then when they went to English, and one of them was about God's faithfulness. You did not abandon Adam, but in the fullness of time, you sent the Redeemer. And I'm going like, that's exactly right. So we can be inspired by the traditional prayers.
Yes.
And having a prayer closet.
Get us going. Yeah.
And having a prayer closet, well, you know, and taking care of yourself. Even Yeshua would draw aside from the crowds. He would draw aside to a quiet place and pray, you know, and I like history. That was one of my majors. And I like the story of Susanna Wesley. She had 19 children and she still had time to pray. And she prayed. She had her own talit. I don't know if you know the story or not, but she had her own talit. She would put her apron over her head. And all of the children, all the people that were serving in the house, everybody there knew that was her prayer time. Do not disturb.
Oh, that was her tent.
That was her tent. She just put her apron over her head. You know, it's just simple. You know, simple things like that. And
sacred space right in your apron. It's like perfect.
I've done that myself, but as you know. Now, I'm not saying get in bed and pull the covers over your head. I'm saying she put apron over her head for prayer to give her privacy, you know. So there's just, you touched on a lot of really good, important points that will really help people. I'm all into experience with God as long as it's not against scripture.
Yes.
And I'm all into the practical, you know. Don't tell me be good and don't tell me how to be good. I'm in the practical. So I think there's a lot of good practical instruction.
Abstract ideas
from all the speakers. So we've really enjoyed this, Robin.
Well, thank you. Let's mention hi to Barb Tipping. She's such a sweet friend. And Gail Ali. Oh, I love the way she spells her name. She says, I didn't talk too fast. Oh, thank you. And I so appreciate the people that pop onto us and encourage us and let us know they're out there and they're with us, you know?
Yes, and Harriet Gant was with us, and Terry Lessie, and Lynn Lorenz, and JoJo the Warrior. That's Joe Cameron. That's another one of our, you know, and Abigail and Milena. So we've just really kind of had a house full today, and that's good. That's good. Hallelujah. And there'll be more to come because a lot of people go back and look at the archives and everything. But before we go, would you tell us about your ministry and if anybody would like to donate or however you do that, if you tell us about your ministry and everything.
Right. So my main thing has been, well, I used to travel and lecture and now I'm home. I'm not traveling. But New Covenant Path is my website. And my books are Becky Books, BEKY Books, as you mentioned, which stands for Building and Encouraging the Kingdom of Yeshua. And this was a series of books spearheaded by Dr. Melissa Aylwine to create, you know, easier teaching materials and a more complete experience on touching on the highlights. And so, yeah, that's what, but I do, you know, I do virtual work with people, helping them when they're struggling with their identity and all that stuff. So that, yeah, that's what I do.
That's wonderful. So the website is
newcovenantpath.com.
newcovenantpath.com. So
and if you forget that, you can ask anybody else and they'll know it. Like Keisha Gallagher, Dr. Aylwine, Dina Dye, like all these people that I know. That's what I always tell people. If you forget it, there's one and they'll know.
That's right.
I have people like, what's Dina Dye's website? I'm like, here it is. I'm always wanting to send people around. So that's another thing about community. We're kind of our own phone book.
And you're on weekly on Messianic Lamb video, radio
Tuesday
network.
at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Mountain, and 3 p.m. Pacific.
And on my website, I have podcasts and blogs and all that sort of stuff. So,
yeah. And now, what Mark does with this, with our conferences, is that he takes each individual speaker and puts them out there in the archive. So anybody who wants to listen to this teaching again, or any of the other teachings, or if you missed it, they'll be uploaded tomorrow on the website and be available. So then you can go into the conferences, not only this one, but the previous conferences. So
excellent.
Thank you so much for being with us, Robin. We really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. It was so good to see you. Be blessed.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.